The massive alien ships appeared above Earth without warning. 50 vessels, each the size of a city, blocked out the sun as they moved into position around the planet. People across the world stopped what they were doing and stared up at the sky. Some screamed, others prayed. Many just stood frozen in shock. Admiral Zextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge. His dark blue skin gleamed under the ship's lights as he watched the small blue planet below. This was his 43rd conquest. Every other world had surrendered within hours of seeing the Kethran fleet. This one would be no different. He pressed a button on his command chair. His voice boomed across every radio, television, and communication device on Earth. People of the third planet, you will listen and obey. I am Admiral Zextar of the Kethran Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. Your leaders must come to our ships and kneel before the Empire. You will give us your resources, your technology, and your strongest people to serve in our armies. Refuse, and we will burn your cities from orbit. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Earth fell silent. In Washington, President Jake Morrison sat in the Oval Office with his top advisors. The former Marine had gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was steady. So that's it? They want us to give up everything? Secretary of Defense Linda Hayes nodded. She had been studying the aliens through telescopes and radar since they arrived. They have enough firepower to level every major city on Earth. Our satellites show similar weapons that could crack the planet's crust. General Pete Collins, head of the Joint Chiefs, leaned forward. Sir, we've been preparing for this day since we detected their scout ships 6 months ago. Operation Starfall is ready. Morrison looked at his old friend. They had served together in Afghanistan 20 years ago. Pete, you know what you're asking. If we fight, millions might die. If we surrender, billions will live as slaves, Collins replied. We've seen what happened to the other worlds they conquered. The Rillan people are worked to death in their mines. The Vorthans build their ships under threat of execution. Is that what we want for our children? In Nevada, Dr. Amy Rodriguez worked frantically in her laboratory. Around her, dozens of scientists examined pieces of alien technology recovered from crashed scout ships. The Kethrans thought they had destroyed all evidence of their early reconnaissance. They were wrong. The power source is incredible, she told her assistant, Dr. Ben Carter. It's some kind of controlled fusion that's more efficient than anything we have. But look at this. She pointed to a damaged control panel. Their computer. Systems are advanced, but rigid. They don't adapt well to unexpected input. Carter nodded. Like they're designed by a species that doesn't expect resistance. Exactly. They've been conquering for so long, they've forgotten how to handle a real fight. Across the world, other leaders made their own decisions. Russian President Viktor Petrov called Morrison directly. My friend, Russia stands with America. Our nuclear submarines are already moving to attack positions. Chinese Premier Liu Wei sent a similar message. The People's Republic will not bow to alien tyranny. Our space program is ready to launch. European Chancellor Klaus Hoffmann coordinated with his allies. The European Union votes for resistance. Our combined fleets are at your disposal. But the most important preparations were happening in secret. Captain Ryan Torres floated in zero gravity aboard the USS Defiance, hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Around him, 19 other ships waited in the darkness. Each vessel was built using reverse-engineered alien technology, invisible to Kethran sensors. All ships report ready, his communications officer said. Lieutenant Julie Parker had been selected for her skill at hacking alien computer systems. The shipyards on Ceres and Vesta have completed the last fighters. We have 500 combat vessels ready for launch. Torres nodded. The secret had been kept for 6 months, while the world above worried about everyday problems, the greatest military force in human history had been assembled in the cold emptiness of space, back on Earth. The countdown continued. News channels showed people gathering in the streets. Some demanded surrender to save lives. Others called for resistance at any cost. Religious leaders offered prayers. Scientists tried to find solutions. Children asked their parents what would happen next. President Morrison made his decision as the deadline approached. He stood before cameras in the Oval Office, with the American flag behind him and his advisors at his side. His speech would be broadcast to every nation on Earth and transmitted to the alien fleet above. Admiral Zexstar and the Kethran Empire, Morrison began, his voice calm but firm. You have given us an ultimatum. You demand that we surrender our freedom, our dignity, and our future. You expect us to kneel and beg for mercy like the other worlds you have conquered. He paused, looking directly into the camera. You have made one critical error. You don't know humanity. We are not like the other species you've defeated. We don't surrender when faced with superior force. We don't kneel to tyrants, no matter how powerful they claim to be. We have faced extinction before and survived. We have stood against impossible odds and won. Morrison stepped closer to the camera. So here is our answer to your ultimatum. We, refuse. We will not surrender. We will not serve. We will not kneel. If you want this world, you'll have to take it from us. And I promise you this. We will make you pay for every inch of ground, every drop of water, every breath of air. Earth is our home, and we will defend it with everything we have. The transmission ended. Above the planet, Admiral Zexstar stared at his screens in disbelief. In 43 conquests, no species had ever refused his demands. They always surrendered when they saw the size of his fleet. He turned to his second-in-command. Begin orbital bombardment of their major cities. Show them what defiance costs. But as the Kethran ships powered up their weapons, something unexpected happened. The space around Earth suddenly filled with small, fast-moving objects. Hundreds of human fighters emerged from behind the moon, their engines burning bright against the darkness. The first shots of the war were fired by Captain Lucy Armstrong, leading Squadron 1 in her fighter Falcon. Her missile struck the shield of a Kethran cruiser, causing it to flicker and spark. All ships, this is Armstrong, she broadcast to the human fleet. The Admiral is right. They want us to kneel. But humans don't kneel. We fly. The battle for Earth had begun. The human fighters moved like nothing the Kethrans had ever seen. Captain Lucy Armstrong rolled her ship between two massive alien vessels, firing short bursts at their weapon systems. Behind her, 50 more fighters followed in perfect formation. Admiral. Zexstar watched from his bridge as the small ships darted around his fleet like angry insects. Impossible, he muttered. No species has ever attacked us first. His weapons officer turned to him. Admiral, these ships are too small and fast for our main guns. They're targeting our shield generators and engine ports. Then launch our fighters, Zexstar ordered. Crush these primitives. But when the Kethran fighters launched, they found themselves outmatched. Human pilots had trained for this moment their entire careers. They knew every weakness in alien ship design because they had been studying captured technology for months. Lieutenant Rick Stone dove his fighter toward a Kethran vessel, dodging plasma blasts that lit up space around him. He had been a Navy pilot before joining the secret space program. Now he used every trick he had learned to stay alive. Fox 2, he called out, launching a missile at the alien ship's engine section. The weapon struck home, and the massive vessel began to drift. Powerless dot across the solar system, more human ships revealed themselves. The secret fleet that had been hidden in the asteroid belt began its attack run. Captain Ryan Torres led the charge aboard the USS Defiance. "All ships, this is Defiance," he broadcast. "We've trained for this day. Remember your targets. Hit their command ships first, then their carriers. Don't let them organize a counterattack." The human ships were smaller than the Kethran vessels, but they moved with purpose. Each captain knew exactly what to do. They had practiced these maneuvers hundreds of times in simulators. Commander Alex Johnson prepared his boarding team aboard the assault ship Ranger. His job was different from the fighter pilots. While they attacked from outside, he would take the fight inside enemy ships. "Listen up," he told his Marines. "These aliens have never fought humans in close combat. They don't know what we're capable of. Use that advantage. Hit hard, move fast, and watch each other's backs." Johnson's team launched from their ship in small boarding pods. The pods were designed to punch through alien hull plating and deposit Marines directly inside enemy vessels. It was dangerous work, but Johnson had volunteers from every military unit on Earth. The first pod struck the Kethran cruiser Blade of Conquest. Johnson and his 12 Marines exploded through the hull in a shower of sparks and debris. The Kethrans inside had never seen anything like it. The alien soldiers were tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. They carried energy weapons and wore advanced armor. But they moved slowly and fought like they expected their enemies to. Retreat. Johnson's Marines fought like cornered wolves. Sergeant Mike Sullivan fired his rifle in short, controlled bursts while moving from cover to cover. His bullets were specially designed to penetrate Kethran armor. Each shot found its target. "They're not used to this kind of fighting," Sullivan shouted to his team. "They keep trying to form up in lines, like it's some kind of parade." The Kethrans had conquered 42 worlds, but none of those species had developed the kind of military tactics humans used. They didn't understand guerrilla warfare, combined arms tactics, or the human ability to adapt quickly to changing situations. Within an hour, Johnson's team had captured the bridge of the Kethran cruiser. The alien captain stared at the humans. In shock, he had been fighting space battles for 30 years and had never lost a ship. "How?" the Kethran captain asked in broken English. "Your ships are primitive. Your weapons are weak. How did you defeat us?" Johnson removed his helmet and looked the alien in the eye. "Because you expected us to surrender. We expected to fight." Back on Earth, Dr. Amy Rodriguez watched the battle through her laboratory screens. She was working on something that could change everything. The biological samples recovered from crashed alien scouts had given her an idea. "Ben, look at this." She called to Dr. Carter. "The Kethran immune system is completely different from ours. They've never been exposed to Earth diseases." Carter studied the data. "You're thinking of biological warfare?" "Not exactly," Rodriguez replied. "I'm thinking of something more specific. A weapon that targets only Kethrans but leaves other species alone. Something that makes them sick enough to stop fighting but doesn't kill them." It was a risky idea, but Rodriguez knew they needed every advantage they could get. The human fleet was doing well, but the Kethrans still had superior numbers and firepower. Admiral Katie Walsh commanded the human battle group from her flagship, the USS Constitution. She had been chosen for her experience in naval warfare, which translated well to space combat. "All ships maintain formation," she ordered. "Don't let them surround us. Keep moving and keep shooting." The space battle raged for hours. Human fighters darted between massive alien ships, targeting key systems. The secret fleet from the asteroid belt hit the Kethrans from multiple directions. Boarding teams captured ship after ship, but the aliens were not helpless. Admiral Zexstar rallied his remaining forces and began a coordinated counterattack. His ships formed a defensive sphere around Earth, preparing to bombard the planet's surface. "If we cannot have this world," he declared, "then no one will." Captain Armstrong saw the alien ships changing position. She understood what they were planning. All fighters, emergency formation. They're going to attack the planet. The human pilots pushed their ships to maximum speed, racing to intercept the Kethron bombardment vessels. They were outnumbered 3-1, but they had something the aliens didn't expect. Reinforcements. President Morrison had kept one final secret. Hidden on the far side of the moon, a massive human battleship had been under construction for the past year. The USS Freedom was twice the size of any other human vessel. Built using the best alien technology, they could reverse engineer. Captain Sarah Walsh, Admiral Katie Walsh's daughter, commanded the massive ship as it emerged from behind the moon. Its weapons were charged and ready. "This is the Freedom," she broadcast to both fleets. "Any alien ship that fires on Earth will be destroyed." The Kethran admiral stared at the new ship on his screens. It was larger than his own flagship and bristling with weapons. How had the humans built something like that without his knowledge? "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "that ship's energy signature is enormous. Its weapons could damage our entire fleet." Zextar realized he had underestimated humanity completely. These were not the primitive beings he had expected to conquer easily. They had been preparing for war while pretending to be helpless. The first day of battle ended with the Kethran fleet in retreat. 3 alien ships had been destroyed, 5 more were captured, and dozens were damaged. The human fleet had lost fighters and taken casualties, but they had won the first engagement. As the alien ships pulled back to regroup, Captain Torres received new orders from Earth. The defensive phase was over. Now came the part that would shock the galaxy. Humanity was going on the offensive. "All ships," Torres broadcast to the human fleet, "prepare for jump to hyperspace. We're taking this fight to their home worlds." Admiral Zextar had expected an easy conquest. Instead, he found himself facing an enemy unlike any the Kethran Empire had ever encountered. An enemy that refused to surrender, adapted quickly to new situations, and fought with a ferocity that terrified his experienced soldiers. For the first time in his military career, the admiral began to wonder if his empire had finally met its match. Captain Ryan Torres stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance as his ship prepared to make humanity's first jump to another star system. Around him, his crew worked at stations filled with alien technology that human scientists had improved and modified. "Jump drive ready, Captain," reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Julie Parker. She had spent months learning how to operate the Kethran hyperspace system. "Destination is the Proxima mining colony, 12 light years from Earth." Torres nodded. Intelligence reports showed that Proxima was lightly defended, with only automated weapons and a small garrison. It would be perfect for humanity's first strike outside their own solar system. "Take us out, Lieutenant." Space twisted around the Defiance as it entered hyperspace. The journey that would have taken thousands of years at normal speed was completed in minutes. When the ship emerged, Torres saw something that made his heart race. The Kethran mining colony was exactly as described, but it was not empty. Thousands of alien workers moved across the asteroid's surface, mining rare metals under armed guard. These were not Kethrans, but members of conquered species forced to work as slaves. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Kate Foster, the ship's intelligence officer. "There must be 10,000 workers down there." Torres studied the scene through his ship's cameras. The workers were thin and moved slowly, showing signs of exhaustion and poor treatment. They wore simple clothes and worked with basic tools, while Kethran overseers watched them with energy weapons. "Can we communicate with them?" Torres asked. Parker worked at her station for several minutes. "I'm picking up multiple languages, Captain. Most seem to be Rillan and Vorthan, based on the phi patterns we studied. I think I can establish contact. The first voice that came through the speakers was weak, but clear. It spoke in heavily accented English. Unknown ship. Please identify. Are you Catherine Reinforcements? Torres took the communication microphone. This is Captain Torres of the Earth. Defense Force. We are human. We are here to fight the Catherines. Silence filled the channel for long moments. Then the voice returned, filled with disbelief. Humans? A new species that attacked the Empire fleet? You have come here? Yes, we're here to free you. Another voice joined the conversation, this one speaking a different language. Parker's translation system worked to convert it to English. The Vorthen workers want to know if this is real, she reported. They say no one has ever come to free slaves from the Empire before. Torres made a decision that would change the course of the war. Instead of simply attacking the Kethron installation, he ordered his ship to land near the main compound. Colonel Mike Sullivan led the assault team that stormed the Kethron garrison. His Marines had trained extensively in alien combat, but this was different from the space battles around Earth. Here they were fighting to save lives, not just win battles. The Kethron overseers were not prepared for a ground assault. They had energy weapons and advanced armor, but they had never faced human infantry tactics. Sullivan's Marines used smoke grenades, flanking maneuvers, and coordinated fire to overwhelm the alien positions. These guys fight like they're still living in the Stone Age, Sergeant Danny Wright called out as he disabled a Catherine weapon emplacement. All they do is stand in the open and shoot. The battle for the mining station lasted 2 hours. When it was over, the Catherine forces were either dead or captured, and thousands of slave workers stood free for the first time in years. A Rillan worker named Keth approached Sullivan. His species was small and covered with gray fur, with large eyes adapted for low light conditions. He had been a slave for 15 years. You are really humans? Keth asked in broken English. The species that defeated the Empire fleet at Seoul? That's right, Sullivan replied. And we're just getting started. Word of the liberation spread quickly through secret communication networks that connected slave populations across the Empire. Species that had been conquered decades ago suddenly heard impossible news. Someone was fighting the Kethrins, and winning Dr. Amy Rodriguez arrived at the mining colony 3 days later aboard a research vessel. She wanted to study the freed aliens and learn more about the Empire's methods of control. The Kethrins use fear and overwhelming force, explained Dr. Zen, a Vorthen scientist who had been enslaved for 8 years. They destroy any world that resists completely, but they have never faced coordinated rebellion before. Rodriguez worked with Dr. Zen and other freed scientists to understand the Empire's weaknesses. What she learned changed humanity's entire strategy. The Empire is not as strong as it appears, she reported to Earth during a secure communication. They control 40 worlds, but most of their forces are scattered in small garrisons. They maintain order through the belief that resistance is impossible. What happens when that belief is shattered? Asked President Morrison from Earth. Revolution, Rodriguez replied. Meanwhile, Commander Julie Parker led a special operations team to infiltrate the Catherine Communication Center on Nexus Station. This was the Empire's main hub for coordinating military operations across 12 star systems. Parker's team used human stealth, technology combined with intelligence provided by freed slaves. They knew exactly where to go and what to target. Remember, Parker told her team as they prepared to board the station, we're not just disrupting their communications. We're sending a message to every slave in the Empire. The infiltration took place during the station's night cycle when most of the Catherine staff was sleeping. Parker's team moved through the station's corridors like ghosts, avoiding security systems and guards. When they reached the main communication center, Parker's technical specialist, Sergeant Amy Lopez, went to work on the alien computers. She had studied Kethran systems for months and knew exactly how to access their networks. "I'm in," Lopez whispered. "Broadcasting on all slave frequencies now." The message that went out across the Empire was simple but powerful. It was transmitted in dozens of languages to every world where conquered species lived under Kethran rule. "This is Commander Parker of the Human Liberation Force. The Empire told you that resistance was hopeless. They lied. We have defeated their fleets. We have freed their slaves. We have proven that the Kethrons can be beaten. Rise up. Fight back. We are coming to help you." The effect was immediate and dramatic. On 17 different worlds, slave populations began coordinated uprisings. They had weapons hidden over years of secret preparation. They had communication networks the Kethrans didn't know about. Most importantly, they had hope. On the industrial world of Kaethura Secundus, Rillan workers seized control of the main starship factory. On the agricultural planet of Verdania, Vorthan farmers captured the Kethran administrative center. On dozens of mining worlds, slave laborers overwhelmed their guards and declared independence. Admiral Zextar watched the reports flood in from across the Empire. In 3 days, the humans had destroyed the foundation of Kethran control, the belief that the Empire was invincible. "How many ships do we have available for suppression operations?" he asked his staff. "Less than half our normal strength, Admiral," his aide replied. "Most of our fleet is still at Sol, trying to contain the human forces there." Zextar realized the humans had played a perfect strategic game. By attacking multiple targets simultaneously, they had forced the Empire to spread its forces thin. By liberating slaves and encouraging rebellion, they had created dozens of new fronts in the war. "Send word to the Emperor," Zextar ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements from the core worlds. Tell him the humans are not just defending their planet. They are trying to destroy the entire Empire." On Earth, President Morrison received updates from across the galaxy. The liberation campaign was working better than anyone had hoped. But he knew the real test was still coming. "The Kethrans will throw everything they have at us now," he told his advisors. "They know if they don't. Stop us quickly. Their entire civilization will collapse." General Collins nodded. "Our fleets are ready, Mr. President, and we have allies now. Every freed world is sending ships and volunteers to join our forces." Morrison looked at the tactical displays, showing human ships operating in 6 different star systems. 6 months ago, humanity had never traveled beyond their own solar system. Now they were leading a galactic revolution. "Then it's time for the next phase," Morrison decided. "Operation Sledgehammer. We're going to hit the Empire where it hurts most." Captain Torres received the new orders aboard the Defiance. His next target was not a mining colony or communication station, but one of the Empire's major military bases. The real war was about to begin. As human ships prepared for their deepest strike into Empire territory, freed slaves across the galaxy looked to the stars with hope they had not felt in generations. The species that had refused to kneel was teaching everyone else how to stand up and fight. General Pete Davis stood in the command center on Luna Base, watching holographic displays that showed the largest military operation in human history. 7 fleets were moving towards 7 different Kethran core worlds simultaneously. Each fleet included human ships and vessels crewed by freed aliens who knew the Empire's weaknesses. "Operation Sledgehammer is a go," Davis announced to his commanders. "All fleets report ready for final approach." Captain Sarah Walsh commanded the largest attack force, aimed at Kaethura Secundus and its massive shipyards. Her fleet included the super battleship USS Freedom and 30 smaller vessels. Flying alongside the human ships were captured Kethron, cruisers now operated by Rillan crews who had spent years building those same ships as slaves. "This is Walsh to all ships," she broadcast as her fleet dropped out of hyperspace. "Remember, our goal is to destroy their ability to build new ships. Hit the construction facilities first, then the defense platforms." The Kethran shipyards stretched across 3 asteroid bases, each one larger than any city on Earth. Massive construction arms worked on half-finished dreadnoughts, while defense stations protected the facilities with heavy weapons. But the defenders were not prepared for the coordinated attack that followed. Human fighters, small and fast, swarmed the defense platforms, while Rillan-crewed ships targeted the power systems they had helped design. The freed aliens knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. Commander Rick Stone led his fighter squadron against the primary construction facility. His missiles struck the main reactor, causing a chain reaction that destroyed 6 partially built warships and left the entire complex powerless. "Target eliminated," Stone reported. Moving to secondary objectives. On the ground level of the shipyard, Vorthan engineers who had been freed from other worlds worked with human special forces to disable the construction equipment permanently. They welded shut blast doors, destroyed computer systems, and planted explosives in key locations. Meanwhile, Commander Alex Johnson led a boarding action against the shipyard's command center. His Marine unit had been reinforced with Rillan soldiers who knew the station's layout perfectly. "The command center is through that corridor," explained Keth, the Rillan worker who had been freed from the mining colony. He now served as a guide for human forces. "The Kethrans will have heavy defenses there." Johnson's team moved carefully through the station corridors. They encountered Kethran troops at several checkpoints, but the aliens were not prepared for combined human-alien tactics. The Rillans knew every shortcut and hiding place, while the humans provided superior firepower. And coordination. The battle for the command center lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the entire Kandhar shipyard complex was in human hands. The Empire's primary source of new warships had been permanently disabled. Similar victories were occurring across the Empire. Captain Lucy Armstrong led the attack on the military academy world of Cathra Tertius, where the Empire trained its officers. The planet's defenses crumbled when Vorthan rebels seized the communication arrays and jammed all military frequencies. Their whole command structure depends on constant communication with the central authority, Armstrong observed as Kethran forces surrendered without coordination. Cut the communication lines, and they don't know how to function independently. The most important battle was taking place at Kethra Prime itself, the Empire's capital world. Admiral Cady Walsh commanded a combined fleet of human, Rillan, and Vorthan ships in the largest space battle in galactic history. The capital world was defended by the Empire's most powerful fleet, including the massive super dreadnought Eternal Dominion. Emperor Zexthron himself commanded the defense from his flagship. "All ships, this is Walsh," the admiral broadcast to her diverse fleet. "Today we end the Empire's ability to enslave anyone ever again. Show them what freedom looks like." The battle raged for 18 hours. Human ships used hit-and-run tactics, while their alien allies employed their knowledge of Kethran weaknesses. Slowly, methodically, the Empire's defensive fleet was overwhelmed. Dr. Amy Rodriguez watched the battle from aboard the research vessel Discovery. She had been working on a secret project that could end the war completely, using biological agents. Developed from Kethran genetic samples, she had created a weapon that would disable alien soldiers without killing them. "Ben, are you sure this will work?" she asked Dr. Carter as they prepared to deploy the weapon. "The computer models show it should render Kethrans unconscious for several hours," Carter replied. "Long enough to disable their ability to fight, but not permanent damage." Rodriguez activated the biological weapon as human boarding parties prepared to assault the Eternal Dominion. Microscopic agents spread through the ship's life support system, targeting only Kethran physiology. Minutes, alien crew members throughout the massive ship began collapsing at their stations. They were not dead, merely unconscious, but they could no longer operate their weapons or coordinate their defense. Lieutenant Commander Kate Foster led the boarding party that captured Emperor Zexthron. The alien ruler sat in his command chair, unconscious but breathing normally. Around him, his entire bridge crew was similarly disabled. "The Emperor is secured," Foster reported. "The ship is ours." The capture of the Emperor and his flagship marked the end of organized Kethron resistance. Across the Empire, local commanders began surrendering when they realized their central authority was gone. But the humans were not finished. President Morrison had given specific orders about how the victory should be handled. "We are not conquerors," Morrison had told his military leaders. "We are liberators. Our goal is not to replace the Kethran Empire with a human empire. Our goal is to make sure no one can ever build an empire like this again." Captain Torres, now promoted to admiral, oversaw the dismantling of the Empire's weapons of mass destruction. The planet-killer weapons that had been used to threaten rebellious worlds were carefully disassembled, their technology preserved for peaceful purposes. These fusion systems could terraform dead worlds, Torres explained to representatives from the freed species. "Instead of destroying planets, we can use this technology to create new homes for anyone who needs them." The Kethran military fleet was divided among the former slave species. Each world that had been conquered received ships for their own defense, ensuring that no single species could dominate the others. Dr. Rodriguez established medical centers on every liberated world, sharing human medical knowledge with alien scientists. The goal was to heal the damage done by centuries of oppression and create a foundation for peaceful cooperation. "We have technologies that could benefit everyone," she explained to the newly formed Galactic Council. "Medical advances, agricultural improvements, environmental restoration techniques, all of it freely shared." Emperor Zexthran was brought before the Council to answer for the Empire's crimes. But instead of execution or imprisonment, he faced something the Kethron culture had never experienced: rehabilitation. "You will work with the restoration teams," Morrison told the former emperor. "You will help repair the damage your empire caused. You will learn what it means to build instead of destroy." The war that had begun with an ultimatum demanding Earth's surrender ended with the complete collapse of the Kethron Empire. But more importantly, it ended with the birth of something new, a galactic community based on cooperation rather than conquest. As human ships began the journey home to Earth, they carried with them representatives from 43 different species. The galaxy had been changed forever, not by superior weapons or advanced technology, but by a simple human concept: the refusal to kneel. Admiral Zextar, now a prisoner of war, watched from his cell as human and alien crews worked together to repair damaged worlds. He finally understood what had defeated his empire. "They do not fight to conquer," he told his guard, a young Rillan who had once been a slave in Kethron mines. "They fight to free others to choose their own path." The guard nodded. "That is why they won. That is why we followed them. Because they offered us something your empire never did." "What was that?" Zextar asked. "Hope." 1 year after the fall of the Kethran Empire, President Jake Morrison stood before the newly constructed Galactic Council building on the former capital world of Kethra Prime. The massive structure had been built not by slaves, but by volunteers from 43 different species working together. The building itself was a symbol of the new galaxy. Instead of the dark, imposing architecture the Kethrans had preferred, the council building was made of crystal and light-colored stone. Gardens from dozens of worlds surrounded it, showing the beauty that could be created when species worked together instead of fighting. Representatives of the free worlds, Morrison began his speech. 1 year ago, an empire that had ruled for centuries demanded that Earth surrender. They expected us to kneel, as so many others had done before us. In the audience, freed beings from across the galaxy listened to the translation devices that converted Morrison's words into their own languages. Rillan families who had been reunited after decades of separation. Vorthan engineers who now built homes instead of weapons. Kethran citizens who had learned to live without ruling over others. Today, we gather not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals, Morrison continued. We are here to establish a new order based on a simple principle. Every species has the right to choose its own destiny. The Galactic Council was unlike anything that had existed before. Instead of one species ruling over others, it was a forum where all voices could be heard. Decisions were made by consensus, with each world having an equal vote regardless of its size or military power. Captain Ryan Torres, now Admiral of the Galactic Defense Force, stood near the back of the assembly hall. He wore a uniform that combined human military traditions with elements from other species, showing the cooperative nature of the new organization. The Defense Force was not an army of conquest, but a peacekeeping organization. Its ships patrolled the galaxy, not to enforce the will of any empire, but to ensure that no one could build another empire like the Kethrans had done. Dr. Amy Rodriguez walked through the halls of the new Interspecies Research Institute, located on a space station that orbited the former Kethran capital. Around her, scientists from dozens of worlds worked together on projects that would have been impossible for any single species to complete alone. The medical breakthrough we achieved last month could extend the lifespan of every known species by 20%, she told her assistant, Dr. Ben Carter. And the agricultural improvements could end hunger on 15 different worlds. The Institute was Rodriguez's greatest achievement. Instead of keeping human technology secret, she had shared it freely with anyone who wanted to learn. In return, other species had contributed their own knowledge and discoveries. A Vorthan scientist had developed new methods for cleaning polluted atmospheres. Rillan researchers had found ways to grow food in environments that had seemed hopeless. Even reformed Kethran scientists contributed by sharing their advanced energy technologies. A council has approved funding for the terraforming project, Carter reported. We can begin work on restoring the worlds the Empire destroyed, Rodriguez nodded. Some worlds had been strip mined so thoroughly that nothing could grow on their surface. Others had been used as testing grounds for weapons of mass destruction. But with combined technologies from multiple species, even the most damaged planets could be healed. In another part of the galaxy, Commander Julie Parker led a mixed crew aboard the peacekeeping vessel Harmony. Her mission was to investigate reports of slave trading in the outer systems, where some criminals still tried to profit from the old ways. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the mining ship Prosperity, reported her communications officer, a young Rillan named Zeth. They claim pirates are demanding tribute. Parker had encountered this before. Some beings could not accept that the age of empire was over. They tried to set up their own small kingdoms in remote areas, forcing weaker species to serve them. All stations battle alert, Parker ordered. Set course for the Prosperity. Let's remind these pirates that slavery is over in this galaxy. The Harmony dropped out of hyperspace near the mining ship to find 3 pirate vessels surrounding it. The pirates were demanding that the miners hand over half their profits and submit to regular tribute payments. Pirate vessels, this is Commander Parker of the Galactic Defense Force, she broadcast. You will release that ship immediately and surrender for processing. The lead pirate captain responded with threats and demands that the peacekeepers leave his territory alone. He claimed the right to rule over the mining operation by virtue of having stronger ships. Parker's response was swift and decisive. The Harmony's weapons disabled the pirate ships without destroying them, and boarding teams captured the criminals for trial. The miners were freed and given escort ships to assure their safety. This is why the Defense Force exists, Parker explained to the rescued miners. Not to conquer anyone, but to make sure no one gets conquered. Back on Earth, children learned about the War of Liberation in schools that taught cooperation alongside competition. The lessons were simple but profound. Strength came not from dominating others, but from helping them achieve their own strength. A young girl named Lisa Chun raised her hand during history class. "Teacher, why did the humans decide to fight the Empire? Wouldn't it have been safer to surrender?" Her teacher, Mr. Kevin Walsh, smiled. "What do you think, Lisa? Is safety more important than freedom?" "I think," Lisa said carefully, "that if you give up your freedom to be safe, you end up with neither freedom nor safety." "That's exactly what President Morrison and his advisors realized," Walsh confirmed. "They understood that surrendering to the Empire would not have saved human lives in the long run. It would only have made humans into slaves like all the other species." Meanwhile, former Emperor Zextron worked in the restoration gardens of Verdania, helping to replant forests that had been destroyed during the Empire's resource extraction operations. It was humbling work for someone who had once commanded fleets, but he had come to understand its importance. "The soil here is still poisoned from the mining operations," he told his supervisor, a Vorthan farmer named Kel, who had once been forced to work in those same mines. "Yes," Kel replied, "but Dr. Rodriguez's team has developed bacteria that can clean the contamination. In 5 years, this will be fertile farmland again." Zexthren had spent months learning about restoration ecology, agricultural science, and environmental repair. It was harder work than commanding a military, but more satisfying than anything he had done as emperor. "I never understood," he said to Kel, "how much more difficult it is to build something than to destroy it." "That's why your empire fell," Kel explained patiently. "You only knew how to take things away from people. The humans taught us how to create things together." At the Galactic Council, representatives debated the establishment of new trade routes that would benefit all worlds equally. Instead of the Empire's system, where core worlds prospered while colonies were exploited, the new trade agreements ensured that every planet received fair compensation for its resources. Captain Lucy Armstrong, now retired from military service, served as Earth's trade representative. She negotiated agreements that brought alien technologies to Earth while sharing human innovations with other worlds. "The key," she explained to new diplomats, "is to make sure every deal benefits everyone involved. When trade is fair, nobody has a reason to start wars." The changes went beyond politics and economics. Cultural exchange programs allowed young beings from different species to study on other worlds. Art and music flowed freely between planets. Stories and histories were shared, creating a common understanding of the galaxy's diverse peoples. Luna Base, Admiral Torres watched the monthly fleet report with satisfaction. Crime rates were at historic lows. No major conflicts had erupted in 6 months. The peacekeeping forces had successfully prevented 3 potential wars through negotiation and mediation. "Sir, we're receiving a request for assistance from the Outer Rim," reported his aide, Lieutenant Colonel Mike Sullivan. "A new species has been discovered, and they're asking for help establishing contact protocols." Torres smiled. This was the kind of problem he preferred to deal with. Instead of conquering new species, the Galactic Council helped them join the community of free worlds on their own terms. "Prepare a first contact team," Torres ordered. "Make sure they understand we're here to help, not to conquer." The new species, called the Zephyrians, were small, peaceful beings who had just developed interstellar travel. They had heard stories about the fall of the Empire and the rise of the Council, but they were still afraid that the larger species might try to dominate them. The first contact went perfectly. The Zephyrians were offered membership in the Galactic Council with full voting rights, despite being one of the smallest species discovered. They were given access to medical and technological advances, but they were also asked to share their own knowledge of sustainable energy production. President Morrison's second term was coming to an end, but his legacy was secure. Earth had become the unofficial leader of the galactic community, not through conquest, but through example.